Low. David Bowie's 11th studio album has a bit of an odd title in hindsight. Featured on several greatest albums of all time lists and noted as a major influence for prominent bands like Joy Division, it's hard to believe that this was a low point in Bowie's life. Quote, I was trying very hard to drag myself out of an awful period of my life. I was locked in a room in Berlin telling myself I was going to straighten up and not do drugs anymore. I was never going to drink again. Only some of it proved to be the case. It was the first time I knew I was killing myself, and it was time to do something about my physical condition, said Bowie in an interview in 2003. In 1976, Bowie moved to France with fellow musician Iggy Pop. The two put together Pop's debut studio album, The Idiot, and afterwards, Bowie began his efforts on what would become 1977's Low, the first of 3 albums making up Bowie's famous Berlin trilogy. The album was meant to be released in 1976 along with The Idiot, but RCA, Bowie's record label, had no faith in the LP, believing it would not be a commercial success. Both RCA and Bowie did next to nothing to promote the album, with just one single coming out before its release. Despite the lack of promotion, the single hit number 3 on the UK singles chart and number 69 on the Billboard Hot 100, while the album hit number 2 on the UK albums chart and number 11 on the Billboard albums chart. How did an unpromoted single and album become so popular? Signs point to the beloved BBC network, who used the single track as the score for several trailers on their network. What started as a simple G major chord progression became one of Bowie's most beloved songs, and his last commercial hit for 6 years until 1983. That's right, we're talking Sound and Vision by David Bowie on Bowie Me.
Sound and Vision.
That's right, it's Bowie Me, the only podcast that compares famous songs to their many cover versions to find out which one is the color of my room. I'm your host, as always, The Snake, joined by my pale, blind co-host,
Alex Mildenberger.
Alex Mildenberger. What's going on?
Oh, oh wait, I was going to say it's Christmas time, but it's not Christmas time, it's January.
We're deep in January. It's been 2023 for a long time.
It's 2023, things are happening.
I'm already remembering to write the 3 instead of the 2. I'm on it, bro.
All that stuff. And not much is going on, honestly.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, we've already pulled the curtain down a bit. I'm in the strange twilight betwixt Christmas and New Year's. I'm in that kind of a mood.
Yeah, the Gooch Week. We're in the middle of the Gooch Week, as they call it. We're at the other end of Gooch Week, as it is New Year's Eve as we're recording this.
Yes.
New Year's Eve day, rather. It'd be fucked up if we did this, towards the countdown to midnight.
Yeah, timed it exactly so it ended right at midnight.
Yeah, that would be some nonsense. We're not doing that. It'd be impressive.
Yep.
It's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that time of year where people don't know what day it is, what time it is. That's just a regular any time of year for me. Always lost. No, I'm kidding, Alex. But you know what is a regular week for me is listening to the album Low by David Bowie.
Oh, yeah.
I fucking love this album.
Yeah, you've, as far as I know, you were always into this one.
It's very strange because for David Bowie, more so than any other musician, I really kind of created a false sense of new releases by just picking up studio albums whenever I could find them on CD and then listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
So this one didn't come into my life until 2013. And embarrassingly, the first time I heard Sound and Vision was in a Samsung commercial, and it was like a remix.
Do you know what it was a commercial for? I don't remember this commercial.
A fucking phone or something.
Some kind of phone. It's probably a Galaxy S3.
Yeah.
Because that was coming out around the S3 or S4. I remember that being a big deal when they're like, oh, is it going to beat the iPhone? I'm getting off topic.
Yeah, they're like, no, you're right on topic.
That seemed like a big deal at the time, and I think I'm about the right time frame.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. I just remember there was a lot of color in it. They were throwing paint or some shit.
Yeah, that sounds
and it was
appropriate.
But yeah, that's the first time I was like, wow, this is a very cool David Bowie song. And that, I think, is what turned me on to being like, I need to find Low. And then I got it, and yeah, never stopped listening to that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got it on vinyl this last year in 2022. Nice.
Oh, I thought you already had it.
Orange. No, not until this year.
Oh, I don't know why.
Yes, because I talk about it so fucking much.
Yeah.
Killer David Bowie album. Worth noting that apparently the album cover, again, I talked about the name of the album in the intro here. It's also just a dumb pun because it's low and then there's a picture of David Bowie in profile.
Yeah.
Low profile.
Yeah. How about that? Which I guess is kind of accurate to the situation.
Yeah, because he basically flees the United States to taper off of drugs, or at least to start trying to.
Yeah, I know there's talk of like he was in LA for a while, and then like that just was like a really weird place to be. Just need to get away from that environment.
That's true. Yeah, there's also the quote where he's like, because in 1975 he records Station to Station. He's like, I know that I was in Los Angeles at the time because that's where they say it was recorded.
Yeah, lots of cocaine.
Lots of cocaine. So yeah, he's keeping a low profile in that sense. There's also the sense that, like I said, he wasn't promoting this album. He was on tour as Iggy Pop's keyboardist.
Yeah.
At the time.
And sometimes just like Bit didn't really even show himself, just kind of like sat down behind the keyboard and like was David Bowie on stage.
Yeah,
but
unreal.
Didn't really be David Bowie.
But yeah, it's like a magic trick that never gets revealed.
Yeah, there's no point.
It's just like he's there, and then you never find out that it's David Bowie.
That would be so weird.
So it's a very strange thing.
I mean, I guess at the time he wasn't like a superstar, but like he was still a pop star.
Yeah, it's like he was still Ziggy Stardust, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he'd retired to that, but that's. Can you imagine? Like, that'd be like going to not community theater, but like some other like off Broadway thing and seeing like a big retired like Broadway star, and you're like, they're just doing a bit part.
Yeah, just because they're bored or whatever.
Yeah,
trying to get off drugs.
Very strange. The two of them trying to get off drugs, Iggy Pop and David Bowie. And did they do it? Eventually.
Yeah. Comes and goes.
And
they made some pretty good music too.
And I've also heard that the reason Bowie was trying to push this album along is because he puts together The Idiot with Iggy Pop. And since he's doing a lot of like the production work on that, a lot of the concepts from The Idiot are like also present in Low from like a musical standpoint or production standpoint. And so he wanted to make sure that people didn't think he was influenced by Iggy Pop.
Oh.
When it was like a co-joint, when it's like the same thing.
Okay, I guess. I guess now that we're many years on, it wouldn't be a big deal, but maybe at the time. If they were both coming out around the same time, sharing fans and stuff. But it is a bit of a strange album too. Like, I probably heard it first after you lent me the CD. That was probably how this worked. And it didn't really click with me at first. You know, there was still some. I more or less always liked this song, but a lot of the stuff on this album is unusual, and even this song is unusual, even though it's probably the poppiest thing. Because it kind of, like, the structure's weird, and it doesn't necessarily develop in the way you might expect a pop song to.
Yeah.
So it did kind of take me a while, but I did always really like this song, and I do remember like walking at the University of Calgary, walking around the grounds, listening to this a lot.
Fuck yeah. You're right. It's a very it's a strange album. It's also because he was slated to do some of the soundtrack work for The Man Who Fell to Earth, the movie he starred in. And then I hear both ends of it, where he found out that he wasn't the sole composer for it, so he kept his work away. And I also hear that the director looked at it and is like, no, I want something different from this. So I've heard it was both rejected by him and by the fucking guy. But then he sends this album, to that guy, to that director. He says, like, this is what I wanted to do with the soundtrack for The Man Who Fell to Earth. So yeah, you get the weird B half, which is all instrumental with some vocalizations.
Yeah, which aren't usually or ever real words.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of sounds.
And even when they are like real words, they're not structured to use the meaning of those words or they're paired with another word that together they have no meaning. Like it's very bizarre. And then that bizarreness is also seen, like you said, in Sound and Vision, which is somehow incredibly poppy and also not poppy at all. Like it's, like you said, there's some structure things that really play against your pop expectations, but the tone on instruments and even like some of the singing and things is like, this is a pop song. And so you're really like kind of sent in both directions. It's
looking at like
confusing.
Sections, it seems like, this is part of a larger pop song, but then you listen to the whole thing. And I mean, it's been described before as having song fragments on this album as opposed to like songs.
Yeah.
Which probably is accurate because it really does feel like part of a song. But like you can get into it, but you kind of have to accept that it might not be structured how you would think it would be.
You would think, yeah. And it is like the prototyping of what becomes his major songwriting method moving forward.
Right.
So he calls it his three-phase process, where the backing music is established first. So this started with like a G major chord progression. He just gave it to the musicians and was like, go wild with this. And then they do like overdubs. And then finally at the end, he chucks in lyrics and vocals.
Yeah, sometimes not even like writing them until after the other parts exist, which is interesting. And I do remember hearing, particularly in reference to Heroes, that like he would make sounds as a melody, and that would be the recording, but then there wouldn't be any actual lyrics until later. Then they would put real words in where the, his weird vocalizations were. So some of that almost seems like, well, in Low, they didn't replace them.
Yeah, they're just like, well, this is it. We don't know what we're going to put there. So we're just going to leave that. I think I got you this book, How to Write One Song by Jeff Tweedy, and he actually talks about something similar for he's like, I've actually had it where I write nonsense. He's like, sometimes I just leave it. And then he's like, I'll have people come up to me and tell me what those words mean. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
cool.
I'm glad. But yeah, so it's the nonsense method is also, I suppose, well established, but yeah, leaving it in is a risky move.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly trying to find meaning in lyrics, and sometimes it feels like we're just giving meaning to nonsense. So
it's true. I mean, talk about the back half of this album. I've shed some real tears to nonsense. So like, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, sometimes you find meaning where there is none.
Yeah, or I mean, the music has meaning too.
Yeah.
So maybe you're just trying to find the meaning you find in the music in the lyrics. Explaining it backwards. Although this one does actually seem to have a bit of a narrative to it.
Yeah, and I was surprised at how, like, because I was like coming into it, I was like, how the fuck are we going to figure this out? He wants to be in a blue room. Like, what the fuck are we going to do with this? But having read the history of it, read where he is, and now read the lyrics, I feel like it's pretty clear.
Yeah,
so let's get into it.
It does seem to make sense. Yeah.
We open, of course. Do 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 do. So that's just vocalizations, baby. We'll get into that in the instrumental half because there is some neat, like backing vocals featured on this. The first real line we get a minute and a half into the song, give or take, is "Don't you wonder sometimes about sound and vision?"
Yeah, sometimes I do wonder about sound.
Sure do, man.
Yeah, it seems it's so like what is he doing in his career, in his artistic endeavors? Like, well, he's doing sound sometimes, he does vision sometimes,
Yes.
It's such a strange, like, or not strange, but like it just like breaks everything right down,
Yeah, like Dave Boy's like, you ever think about like sound and like looking at stuff?
It's like,
okay, yeah, I guess I do.
Like almost exclusively.
I thought you were trying to get off drugs, David Bowie.
Yeah, it's so just like basic, I guess, stripped down, you might say, and to the point where like the line or just the title has kind of become like it's the name of like David Bowie collections, and it was the name of like one of his tours, and like it's just you can use it to describe like anything.
Yeah, and I think part of why it works is one, the simplicity, but two, I do think there is a double meaning on vision.
Okay.
where it's not simply sight, but also like drive or like having a goal.
Right.
It's having a direction, having vision, having artistic vision. And these are the things he's thinking about right now. Sound, his music, and having
a vision.
A vision of what to do.
If his sounds are sound.
Yes, if his sounds are sounds, if his visions are visible.
His visions have vision.
Exactly.
Yeah, and supposedly that's kind of, I mean, I don't know exactly where it came from, but there was definitely like a review or, description that supported this. The idea that he's really just kind of describing being in a room and like wanting to be inspired. Like it's a song about writer's block, essentially.
Essentially, yeah. It's about like feeling creatively bankrupt.
Yeah.
And then it's somehow one of his like best works. It's a fucking banger.
It is so strange because I don't know, even just like talking about like colors, and like there's something there, it seems so different from this idea of like, I can't think of anything to write. But like part of it is kind of positive. I guess I shouldn't get too much into it before we actually read the lyrics. But
yeah, it's let's knock out this verse. Blue, blue, electric blue, that's the color of my room where I will live. Blue, blue.
Blue.
What do we make of this, Alex? Blue, color of sadness, sure, maybe.
Sure,
electric
there's
blue,
all that
though,
there.
is quite a bright color.
It is. I don't know if it's a sad color exactly. It does feel like as part of the story, he's like, it feels like forcing a description. If he does have some form of writer's block, he's like, all right, let's try to describe this thing poetically, and he's just adding an adjective, which is kind of just like the cheapest way to do that.
Right. It could have been anything, but as soon as you put a color there, it's now the audience is doing the work.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he's still just describing the color of his room. And it seems like such a silly line because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because he does literally just say blue is the color.
Yeah, he's a blue, blue, electric blue. Okay, we've decided what color you want your room to be.
And then even says it later. It's just blue, blue again. So it's like taking up a lot of this.
To reaffirm that notion, it's quite a big chunk. He says this. He says, it was just the idea of getting out of America, that depressing era I was going through. It was wanting to be put in a little cold room with omnipotent blue on the walls and blinds on the window.
So this is a place he wants to be.
Yes. He did also call it somewhere else the ultimate retreat song. And that seems to be what he's reeling away from America, from drugs. And he's trying to, something he'll grapple with again on like Ashes to Ashes, which we talked about last year, but he's trying to figure out how to keep David Bowie alive and how to stay creative.
Yeah, which is something that I think a lot of artists deal with, and most don't do it that successfully necessarily. Like it's hard to do.
Yeah, it's hit or miss the whole way down.
How do you keep going? Especially if you spend your whole life like writing 5 songs and then they're on your first album. It's like, well, what do you do next? You've got a month. Go.
Exactly.
And the feeling of the song overall, definitely. I mean, the idea of this retreat, I have to agree. It feels like you are alone. Like it feels very solitary, but also like you're kind of appreciating the things that are around you. Like you're noticing details and stuff.
Yeah, it's like some kind of vacation, even if it is to a nowhere place, to basically a jail cell, a blue jail cell. Because he goes on to say, pale blinds drawn all day, nothing to read, nothing to say, blue, blue. So he doesn't want anything coming in. The only input he wants is this very bright shade of blue.
Yeah, it's just blue. There's not even really any light, like maybe a little bit coming through the blinds, but like they're closed. He's not looking outside. He's just stuck in this room.
Yeah, he's got no books to read. He has nothing. He's head empty. He's got nothing to say even. He's just like, blue room.
Yeah, nothing to write.
Some genius for some reason seems to think that this is about him watching TV.
That's an interesting idea, just because, I mean, if your TV's off, glows kind of blue. Old TVs.
Old TVs, yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe that's part of it because he's not watching anything. There's just a TV.
Could be, yeah. It again plays into this idea of just complete isolation.
I mean, that's an I would say that's an electric blue.
Yeah, arguably in the technical sense, it's blue from electricity. Of course, what's he doing in this room then? I will sit right down, waiting for the gift of sound and vision. And I will sing, waiting for the gift of sound and vision.
Waiting for the gift of sound and vision. Yeah. I mean, he's sitting in this room, you know? I like the description of everything. I don't know.
It's very, like, simple. It's very quaint. It's just like being in a blue room with pale blinds. That could be fucking anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sit and wait for the gift of basically two very basic senses, but I think with a much heavier meaning for David Bowie.
Right, because he's trying to think of like what sounds do I make and what do I look like to make this rock and roll thing continue to work.
And yeah, not even just like what do I look like, but what am I looking to do?
Yeah, but the idea of like waiting for inspiration, I think, is a pretty common one.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely been there. I'm like, what next? You know?
Yeah.
What's gonna show me? I don't know.
But he's not completely passive because he will sing as well, waiting for the gift of sound.
True, and that's kind of where I mentioned before that it seems a little positive. Like he's not like sad, or he doesn't. I mean, he's blue, like he's down, right? But that's or potentially, but that's really the only thing he ever says about that, you know. But he's still singing. He's still like hopeful. He's still waiting for inspiration.
It's an acknowledgement of a bad state he's in with like maybe a forced positive outlook.
Yeah, maybe.
He's like, I'm going to sit right down, I'm going to sing, and I am going to wait for this gift because it will come to me. But even in the next two lines, he says, drifting into my solitude over my head. Which just taking over my head, like isolated, it's like he knows he's in like out of his depth. He doesn't actually know how to conjure the gift of sound and vision.
Yeah, like he's missing it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't understand it, or he's not getting it. Yeah, there's another. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, the negative part of it. Is like, would I even know if I got it? Like, am I good enough?
Right. Yeah. Am I smart enough to recognize sound and vision if it were to appear before me?
And these are questions that I think, like, I might ask myself, you know?
Oh, yeah.
In some form.
It's the only question I ask myself is, do I know a fucking thing?
Do I fucking know anything? Do I even know that I know nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that's it. After that, it's, don't you wonder sometimes about sound and vision?
Yeah, it's not much, you know? It does feel very fragmentary.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really just kind of describes this room. And, like, I think there's a fair amount there. But there's not much to it.
Yeah, it's almost a meditation. He brings up the concept. He's like, I am going to ponder in this song the concept of sound and vision. Here is how I go about pondering it, with the color blue and drawing the blinds without reading, without saying anything, with maybe just singing and sitting. Does that create sound and vision? These are David Bowie's thoughts on the creative process at this point. It's very cool. I like this song. You know what really supports these weird lyrics, these fragmented lyrics?
Oh,
is this utterly hypnotic music?
Music. Yeah, the music's really interesting.
Yes.
For a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, this one was recorded in France. You mentioned you went to France at this Chateau d'Hérouville, which we've talked about before. I forget what song, but it was a pretty like popular studio around the time. I know that I remember a story from Jethro Tull recording there. What song did we talk about? Was it Elton John?
It sounds like an Elton John thing. Was it Rocket Man?
It might have been Rocket Man. Anyway, I was reading some stories about them recording there, and they were talking about how like they were not getting any help from the staff, and like they all got food poisoning when at some point because the kitchen staff wasn't very good. Apparently there's a kitchen also. I guess if you have a chateau.
It's a big like chateau. Yeah, it's huge.
But they recorded like most of this album there. I think the I don't know if they probably did some mixing after they went to Germany.
Hansa Studios in West Berlin is where they did mixing and where he would have added in lyrics and vocals.
Yeah, and I think also like the last 2 songs or something were done there. Something like that.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, interesting. This is also famously collaboration with Tony Visconti.
Yes.
And also Brian Eno.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff, like reading some of the like trivia about this is really interesting because they're talking about how the drums were fed through this Eventide H910 harmonizer unit, which is like, according to, probably Wikipedia, whatever my research, wherever I copied this from, it says it was the first commercial pitch shifting device that could alter pitch without changing speed. And that's something we've talked about before. I didn't know it took until 77 to get something that I could actually do that. But we've said in the past, like, I don't know if they could have made that deeper without slowing it down. And the answer is not before this, apparently.
Not before this,
Not commercially. And like, that's what they fed the drums through, this harmonizer. And I'm thinking about this, right? I'm listening to the drums, and it's like, this is the first place drums sounded like that? Because if so, like, holy shit.
Yeah, the drums on this track alone are, like, responsible for a lot of what happens.
That's got to be so important,
afterwards.
Right?
Yeah.
If no one else was doing this, and then afterwards we're like, oh, we can do that now? It's like, well, that's influential.
Yeah.
If it's like, because it's basically like drums with, like, crazy decay. You just hear there's like huge drums. It's like that's like the entire 80s.
Yeah, they call it a sizzle cymbal, and it's very distinct on the track, and that processing is so clear. It's very cool. So you get that, you get these drums, you get the beautiful guitars with their nice like high and bright tone.
Yeah, that's Carlos Alomar. I believe on that, what you might call the main riff.
Yeah, I believe they have the Dam trio on this.
Oh.
Alomar, and then you have George Murray on bass, and Dennis Davis on drums.
Dennis Davis.
They were like a big mid-70s trio for Bowie.
Good stuff, man.
Good stuff. So yeah, you got these guys going on. You have the production work of Bowie, Visconti, and like Brian Eno.
Who might or might not. I don't remember if Brian Eno was involved in this song or not.
He is. Brian Eno does piano and backing vocals. Eno also recruited then Mary Visconti, now Mary Hopkin, to perform backing vocals as well.
Yeah, so she does the
doo-doo-doos. She says the following of those, because those will come up pretty quick on our discussion here. She says, one evening, Brian called me into the studio to sing a quick backing vocal with him on Sound and Vision. We sang his cute little doo-doo riff in unison. It was meant to be a distant echo, but when David heard it, he pushed up the fader until it became a prominent vocal, much to my embarrassment, as I thought it was very twee. I love the song, and I'm a great admirer of David's work.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it is very twee. Like, that's fine, though.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
Yeah, what it's like, it is, but it's also, I don't know, I guess I just like the song. But there's something about it that makes it feel like a bit of a throwback because of that. Because it sounds kind of like old. Like, it doesn't sound like the Supremes, but kind of like that era. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's people, critics also referred to it. They're like, this pulls on a lot of the same stuff he was doing in Young Americans, because it has a bit of that soul vibe to it. And yeah, it is twee, but also plays with the idea of like sound and vision, like the simplicity of the song. The first vocals we get aren't even saying words.
True. It's just do-do-do. And they feel like they should come after words, right? Like that's one of the other weird things about the song is it feels like there's parts missing, which is kind of true. Because there are more lyrics that were cut out when they were mixing.
That's right, and that was an Eno decision, from my understanding, is he wanted to throw listeners off kilter by not giving you Bowie vocals until a minute and a half in.
Yeah, and I think it works.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool stuff. What
bass
else
on this, grooving.
Going on? Grooving. The bass. Really has that groove. Very simple. I feel like there should be a name for this pattern. There's a name for all kinds of patterns. But the basic pattern, they play like those 3 notes and then kind of like hold the last one, or it's a rest. And then they do like a little turnaround or something at the end. Sometimes it's just the same note, or it's a turnaround. But it's like just the last beat. You know, that kind of stuff. So it like reminds me of the idea of a walking bass line, but instead of playing different notes throughout the measure, you're just kind of playing the same note.
Yeah, for sure. You don't walk around, you're kind of just doing different variations on the same loop.
And it really is that. It's the loop.
It is, because as the 3 minutes of this song goes on, you're thinking something's going to change up, and it's like, nah.
Not really.
We'll add in some more synth and things. So
there's 2 sections, but that's pretty much it. 2.5.
2.5. Sure. We get the big synth is the next kind of big move. We get this descending. Yeah,
I thought there was more synth in this one, but really, it's that descending like string synth that kind of builds the chord as it goes down and holds the higher ones. That's pretty much the synth in this song.
That is the extent of it, because and the one part I forget about is the once we're getting into the actual verse, we get that saxophone.
Yes. Which doesn't come in for very long, but there is a saxophone.
No, it's in and then it's out.
And then later on it even gets replaced by vocals.
That's right.
But there, you gotta throw some saxophone in there. Very tasteful. Very low saxophone. Playing the Drifting Into My Solitude, or what will be the Drifting Into My Solitude
That's
part.
right. And even that introductory synth is the blue, blue, electric blue. Like, that's the verse melody.
Basically the same thing there.
So you get a lot of like foreshadowing of vocals.
It's kind of because they basically do it twice, and the second time there's words.
Yeah.
But there are still several loops. There's 2 guitars there as well. So I mentioned the lead guitar already. It's kind of sliding around. It's playing sixths, just like an interval, and kind of sliding there and around.
Right.
And then there's also rhythm guitar there. It's harder to hear though, but I wasn't really listening to it before this time. Listening for it before, like this week, but you know, it's there. It's kind of strange. It doesn't really ring out much. It's got a similar pattern to the bass, which makes sense.
Right.
It's the rhythm, but it's just kind of like strumming along. And then there's like several
that rhythm.
Sorry,
I forget that rhythm guitar. I also lose the piano a lot if I'm not listening to it.
Yeah, I feel like you can't hear the piano most of the time, but there is some, like, it kind of just like hits chords. So like while the lead guitar, what I would call the lead guitar, but it's still more of a harmony part. And then it's like, that's the chord. It plays that, you know, the first beat of each bar. That's kind of what the piano's doing, at least for now.
Yeah.
But not a whole lot else going on. But as much as it doesn't develop much, there's a bit of that. Because there's still something, because it's got like its sort of main loop. The first time it loops through, it establishes it. Then once you get to the second one, it brings a piano in. I didn't hear it before. Might have been there. And then the bass kind of starts to deviate, but that's where you get those other like little patterns and flourishes and stuff between, like, at the ends of bars. And then they started bringing that synth in the third loop. But that's also where you get the like 2-note Bowie sigh.
Yeah,
which happens a couple times. And then that's when they go into the other section where you get the do 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 do, which actually starts on the guitar, and then Mary comes in for the second one. And then it's not until after that, because there's that, and then there's the Drifting Into My Solitude without lyrics, and then you do another couple loops, and that's where you actually get lyrics.
Yeah.
So,
minute and a half in.
Yeah.
So halfway through the song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 3-minute song.
So, and then it kind of just goes through all that stuff again. But now he's singing.
Yeah, with these like call and response style Bowie vocals where it's just him. But it feels like two distinct parts.
It does, because he sings in 2 registers.
Yeah.
Which definitely something he's done before. Often he'll harmonize, do his own harmonies. And then it's clearly David Bowie singing in 2 different registers. And then there's also this where they're still kind of harmonizing at times, but
like that response track is definitely 2 vocal tracks.
Yeah, and listening to it, I find it always easier to focus on the high notes. I don't know if that's universal, but
I think that's typically
the
what I focus on.
The low part seems to be more of the lead because it's there more.
It's true, yeah.
So sing along with that one. It's way easier to sing along with. Drifting into my solitude.
And then he gets some processing on the vocals at times too. That's the color of my room. Sounds very crunchy around the edges of it.
Yeah, like overdriven or something. Or it's peaking something. So cool sounds, and that's important. But that's kind of it, because it's a lot of repetition and then it kind of fades out, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a song that has ended.
Yeah. I kind of want to bring up, there's a quote here from Alex Kapranos, who says of the song, Alex Kapranos is the front man for Franz Ferdinand. Why he's talking about the song, we'll never know. You feel like this song is playing for eternity in some other universe. It's like you caught a snippet of something that will always be playing.
Yeah, I like that, because I definitely feel like I could loop it forever. I mentioned, I've been playing it on the piano, and it has that feeling. Like there's the loop point, and you could just keep going, and again, and again, and again.
And again, yeah, it has that feel. It's that feeling of a song that's played on the radio, but it's too far away for you to get the fullness of it.
Yeah,
but
and then it comes
the
towards you for a bit, and then it moves on.
It moves on, yeah. It's
I didn't mention
something else, dude.
I didn't mention the drum fill, but there's a drum fill that plays between loops, and that's kind of how you can really tell when it's looping. And that plays right at the end, and it just loops again. So it just really feels like you're going into another section. Yeah.
No, it's quite a hypnotic song. It's unbelievable. It's very cool. And it inspires a lot of interesting covers, I think. I think a lot of people get to do their own twist on things with it.
Yeah.
And,
a lot of ways you can approach it.
A lot of ways you can approach it, and there's a lot of ways to fuck it up, but I feel like a lot of the ones we talked about today did a good job, or we're about to talk about. So let's talk about Book of Love, Alex, in 1993.
Yeah, let's talk about Book of Love.
Don't you wonder sometimes about sound and vision?
Is the Book of Love referring to anything specifically?
For sure. It's, I'm not sure what, but in this case, it refers to the band from Philadelphia.
This is a band?
This is a band, yes.
It's a movie that came out this year, apparently. I mean, last year.
Last year. Okay. Yeah.
And in 1990.
And in 1990. They might be named after that.
Did you write the Book
Actually, they can't be named after that. They opened for Depeche Mode in 1985 and 1986.
Yeah. Anyway, they're a synth pop band. Yeah,
yes.
Like you said, Philly. And they do... Apparently, they were these guys that were just kind of big in clubs, and apparently they did a lot of music that was popular in clubs.
I believe that. Well, they open for Depeche Mode. They're in electronic and synth pop. Checks out.
Yeah. And this definitely feels poppier. I would say, this is 93. It definitely feels like we went through the 80s and we kind of get synths now. A lot more than in 77 or 76, whenever this would have been recorded. And and it's 15 years later, and like we have more tools to pull from, but I also think that makes this one sound a little bit more like generic in a way, because I'm like, yeah, I recognize these sounds. Like this is the sounds themselves are not different from other things.
Yeah, they're refined sounds of 1993, like synth. It's
not bad
know
sounds,
their work,
but I'm like, I
not bad.
kind of recognize that. I know where that came from, not
and
actually specifically, but you know.
Yeah, and this sort of like moodier, like synth pop at the time. We got a bit of like, there's this processed church bell they use in the beginning, and it comes up later. This dong dong. And like this sort of low bell. Synth, this so there's a bit of edge to it.
Yeah, and it's all on synth.
Yeah, of course.
So I was looking up the band members, and it was like credits. This guy keyboards, and this guy keyboards, and this one keyboards, and yeah. So it's all synthesizers. Programming piano.
Yeah, I like the synth they have that kind of does this staccato. So it does the sigh from the original, but like chopped up on a synth.
They definitely have some of that like echoey stuff, right?
Yeah.
Over my head. For example, where it just sounds like they're doing their own repeats.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
On echoes, which they might be. I don't know.
Yeah, you get the very like new wave, like post-punk detached vocals. It's female vocals on this track. She comes in with
yeah, and I get to the lyrics a lot earlier too. A lot of these versions will do that, but this one is like, yeah, we'll do the verse, like because the original instrumental and then lyrical kind of just do it. Always do the lyrics. Just repeat it. Why not? My head.
Yeah, you get the big echoes on certain lines. The sound and vision line gets replayed too. Sound and vision.
Yeah. Some of those are funny. I don't know why. I wasn't expecting the echo.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing to emphasize. Because sometimes with the covers, it's like, do you know what the song's about? It's like, it plays fine in this one because nobody really digs too deep, but it's always like, head. We need to repeat this line.
Yeah, that's the important part. Head. Yeah, but overall, it's kind of weird. Like, not weird, I guess. They changed the feel to me because the original has like this real like deep groove.
Mm-hmm.
Which this one doesn't really have. It's still very danceable though, because they make club music, but it's in a different way. I wouldn't call it
because it's stuck together by that very like dun 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 dun. It's this very like not super groovy sounding rhythm, but that's what holds this track together.
But you can still move to it, and I guess that's important.
Yeah,
I said that very dismissively. That's important.
That's important. There is like when we get to that head moment, we also shift up to like a sort of crunchier, like almost industrial synth, like boom, boom, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, there's a lot of those like texture-y things in there too. I guess it's 93, so it's not
so like the textures on this are much like colder than the original, which has a warmth to it. Like even as Bowie
like some
questions whether music can be made.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot else to say about this one. It's definitely busier.
It gets almost Christmassy with the synth at the end.
At the end, is it because of,
like 325?
Yeah, it does like bell sounds and
and
like string pads. Yeah, that sounds kind of Christmassy. So Merry Christmas again.
Merry Christmas again. Sound and Vision, now a Christmas song if you pick the right band. The question you got to ask yourself, though, Alex, this is what it sounds like when a synth pop group does it. What about if, like, basically Neutral Milk Hotel did it? So we're talking about Quasi in 1996.
Yeah, in 96, Quasi.
Don't you wonder sometimes about sound and vision?
So I looked at the band. They're an indie band. They're from Portland, which makes sense based on my next fact. Sam Coombs and Janet Weiss, who used to be married but now are just in a band together. Janet Weiss, which might be like Weiss or something like that, used to be a member of Sleater-Kinney, which is another band out of Portland, and that Carrie Brownstein is in that band. She's in Portlandia. So
yeah.
That's my little trivia bit.
It's a good piece of trivia. I love that. So these guys.
I'm glad you liked it.
It's my favorite part. I still haven't listened to Sleater-Kinney.
I haven't listened to them much either. I'm like, Carrie Brownstein from Portlandia. I know who that is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, hey, yeah, they got that indie rock sound. This is like your hypnotic indie rock, like Wallace sound.
Yeah. It's very
cacophonous.
Very different.
But also
feeling.
Like very like.
Also.
Like laid back cacophony. So to me, I was like, this sounds a bit like Neutral Milk Hotel, and like this is right around Neutral Milk Hotel's era. It's not Airplane Over the Sea. That's the year after this cover comes out, but
it's close.
Yeah, it's close. And their first album was out, so maybe these guys picked that up. Maybe they were just running in similar crowds because it's got a similar vibe.
Yeah, that sounds believable. It's the right time frame. This one basically takes, it removes a lot or changes a lot, right? It uses some parts, mostly some of the melody, right? But they they don't have like the lead part. They don't have the bass line. The bass line, it's like also like the last one, Drop the Groove, but I wouldn't call this one danceable. Swayable.
No. Swayable, sure.
Which maybe is a form of dancing, but not in the same way as Book of Love. But yeah, it's a lot of like noise and like this really slow, like plodding feel, which I believe you basically called laid back, which makes sense.
Yeah, plodding, sort of like especially with those drums. It's like.
Yeah, and it's like lo-fi sound, so everything is like huge and noisy.
Yeah, and you got this this rhythm guitar that's pretty much constant, just
Yep. Other like sounds, like there's like these kind of digital sounding like bleeps and bloops, but there's also some like, I think the synth you just mentioned was what I was
yeah, and there's that bow bow down down like synth that is their kind of rhythm.
So lots of those synth sounds filling out the space and making it feel very, again, we talked about textures before, but this really focuses on those textures.
Yeah, and of course very detached vocals.
Very.
Do you ever wonder sometimes?
Low energy. Again, you said laid back. Yeah.
Laid back isn't quite the right word though, because that implies like relaxing.
True. I wouldn't call these relaxing. Do you wonder sometimes?
Yeah. What I find interesting with the verse is he says, "I will sit right down," and then but he doesn't say the title of the song. And then he goes, "I will sing."
Feel like sometimes you got to take the chorus out of the verse.
Yeah.
Got to save it for the big moment.
That's right, because he does later on get it out at 3.5 minutes. So waiting for the gift of sound and vision.
Yeah. This one is
around. He doesn't do it.
Yeah. I don't know. That might be what I would do, or why I would do it, but I don't know why he would do it.
Can't tell you, Alex. I'm not Quasi.
Few of us are.
He does there's a synth solo in here.
Oh yeah, this one is a synth solo. This is the one with the synth solo? Is there another one with the synth solo? I swear I wrote it down, but I can't find my note.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the timestamp it because I'm a bastard.
I didn't write it down.
Oh yeah, around like 3 minutes.
Say 3 minutes?
Yeah, of course you still get it's tough to like distinguish a solo because you have the big like sound filling backing.
No, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
That might be a guitar. No,
Could be.
I don't know. when you alter the sound this much, it's hard to tell.
What is it? Can we attribute it to any one thing?
Yeah. And you can run a guitar through a synthesizer. It's like, what is reality?
Yeah. It's hypnotic, but in a different way from the original.
Yeah, hypnotic. I like hypnotic. I said lethargic, but I think I like hypnotic better.
Yeah.
Because it definitely has that like slow feel. And like you're pushing through a very thick texture of some kind.
So you got to get through all of this sound and vision to get to the gift of sound.
Or like you need to push through to get to the inspiration.
Yeah.
So more like there's an effort to this. You have to seek inspiration as opposed to waiting for it to come to you.
Right. Yeah, maybe it is the cacophonous state of mind as you sit there in supposed silence waiting for sound and vision. This is your brain going...
If there's too much sound and vision, you just have to find the right stuff.
Yeah, you got to filter it out.
It's not enough. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid, like, indie rock cover, I think. It's not breaking new ground, but it's solidly built. It's not like they played it safe or anything. I think it's pretty all right. Let's talk about Motor Industries and Kristin Berg in 2002.
Don't you wonder sometime about sound and vision?
Yeah. Good thing she doesn't go by Kristy.
Kristin Berg.
Kristin Berg. Krista Berg joke.
Kristin Berg. Spanish train. I got it.
The Spanish train guy. Anyway.
Everybody's always talking about Kristin Berg.
Let's talk about Kristin Berg.
How should you find anything on either of these entities?
No, they're like a cover group. They have a bunch of cover stuff. Kristin Berg doesn't seem to. This is her only credit on Spotify. When I looked up Motor Industries on Spotify, it said like listeners also listen to or fans also like, and a bunch of bands that have their descriptions in like Cyrillic alphabet. So they are Russian or similar. I don't know if they're specifically Russian, but
they're similar to Russians.
Someone who uses the Cyrillic alphabet.
Okay. All right. Okay.
As far as I can tell, but their description is empty. So I don't know what to make of that. And yeah, they just have a bunch of covers of things like Exit Music for a Film and People Are Strange and Ripple.
Well, yeah, they've done it again on this one. They've covered a song, Alex.
They sure have. This one is a David Bowie song.
This one's a David Bowie song. It's kind of like demo-y a bit, this one.
Oh,
it's
yeah?
It's just like sparse, and you can kind of really hear some of the instruments just hanging bare, like the bass. You can just feel like something else should be playing with it. Because it's just too much bass.
Too much just bass. I really felt like kind of the opposite of the previous one is they like go minimal and just really focus on the groove. And like they kind of like slowed it down to let that groove really sit.
Right.
And then the drum beat really feels heavy.
Yeah, and then they also have this weird, like, bubble popping, kind of waka-jawaka, like...
They do.
Like, rhythm.
Well, like, it sounds like record scratching, but also, like... yeah, bubble pop sound.
Yeah. So I wasn't keen on that sound, but it is there. It's pretty subtle.
I didn't even notice it, honestly.
Okay. I noticed it right off the bat. I was like, what the fuck
It sounds like the kind of song that would, or the kind of sound that would, for some people, be like the worst thing.
Right, like they would have a sensory issue.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair.
But also
it's not that
subtle
bad
enough.
for me, but I'm just like, I could do without it.
Subtle enough that like I kind of didn't even think of it. They have since playing that like the sixths part. The lead guitar, I called it.
Synth.
Yes, compared to the original where it's like front and center, but like they keep it very light, and it's very like airy and like chime sound. This is also, I feel like like the vocals come in early in the song, but not early time-wise, because this is a longer version because it's slow.
4 minutes.
But like the vocals come in around the same time. So it's a bit early. And they've got vocals in already, not even halfway through.
Yeah, and they're quite subdued. They almost sound like they're like behind a wall.
That's, I assume, Kristin Berg.
Yeah, one would imagine. It doesn't sound like a car, so I imagine it's Kristin Berg.
But yeah, they do feel, I mean, so it happens sometimes when you get these singers that like don't really have credits and like I don't know what else they do, but like it doesn't feel like they did too much with the vocals.
No.
Yeah. What else is happening? This one has a solo.
Stripped down. It does have a solo.
Yeah, it is stripped down. They do a solo, which is weird. I mean, this one feels more like the previous ones did seem to try to make the song develop a bit more, but this one's like we need a solo. And that way it's more similar to like a traditional song structure. But it also feels weird because the rest of it doesn't change that much. So I'm like, I also didn't find the solo like that interesting.
No.
Or good sounding. So it's not
that's
much
right.
really
It's pretty plain.
Yeah.
I was more excited by like 2 minutes 30 seconds in when a guitar plays briefly. You get this.
Like yeah. Briefly. Very briefly.
There is somehow in the song also a breakdown, despite there not being much to break down.
Where's that? Yeah, there is a bit because they do it's pretty stripped down, but then they strip it down more.
Yeah, they like just take the drums out, and it's very strange.
Yeah, I
Starts
feel
at
like
about 2:45.
This one was a bit frustrating. I feel like I think you said it needed something else. I don't know if that's the answer, but like it feels a bit sterile, and I feel like the bass is almost there. Like if they could really groove up that bass somehow, then I think it could have potentially carried the rest, or like at least led to this being a little bit better. But I feel like ultimately it just feels sterile.
Now, how do you think they groove it up, Alex? Do they maybe pick up the tempo a bit?
I don't think you would have to,
Okay.
I don't think it has to be the original song, right?
Sure.
But like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge rhythm guy. I'm not a groove doctor, but the things that make things groovy can be so subtle, and it can be like just playing a little bit differently. Like you're playing the same notes theoretically with the same timing, but you're playing around within that measure or within that beat.
Right.
And sometimes that's all it takes, but they don't quite have it, I don't think.
That's fair, Alex. You know who might have something, though, is our next act. The Sea and Cake in 2003.
Don't you wonder sometimes about sound and vision?
The Sea and Cake. Yes. This is a band, allegedly an indie rock band with jazz influences.
Yeah, that didn't come through on this.
Saw them described as post-jazz.
Post-jazz. That's something here. I gotta go to the bathroom, though, so...
Okay. Let's have a little...
Why don't we post up on thinking about post-jazz?
All right.
I'll be back. Post-jazz, huh, Alex?
Post-jazz, allegedly.
Post-jazz,
I didn't.
Allegedly.
I didn't notice.
What are the defining features of post-jazz?
Not
a song
jazz.
made after the concept of jazz was invented?
Yeah. It doesn't sound terribly jazzy to me.
No, it doesn't. These guys' name, it's the Sea and Cake, like the sea as in the water.
Yeah.
But apparently it's a reinterpretation of something called the C, as in the letter C, in cake.
Yeah, they
so
just
that's a bit of fun.
heard it wrong.
Yeah. That's how Quiet Riot was made.
It's like Quite Right or something like that?
Yeah, you heard some British guy say, Quiet Riot.
Quite Right.
I like to make a band called Quiet Riot. He said, Quiet Riot. All right. But that's not that. This is the Sea and Cake. Start with some kind of like echoey, like metal sheet noises. Some laser scanning.
Laser scanning. Yeah, like it sounds electronic. It's like sound effect stuff. And I didn't
then
write
like a
an overall
reversed
for this
synth
one.
comes in.
I have like a play-by-play of this one. Yeah, they got like the synth that slides around a bunch. More like high-pitched stuff. So this one really has.
Did I have an overall take on this one? Because I also think I just did a play-by-play.
Like what did I actually think of this one? I don't remember. It is. I mean, largely they're following. Okay. No, they're not following. I wish I had
written big drum hits.
An overall, because I gotta now remind myself
these gentle guitar chords instead of your sixth slide.
Yeah, it's they don't do that slide. They just do kind of the harmony straight. The bass feels different. There's lots of that ambient stuff, and
the bass
drums feel
like
very different. It's more of like a drum focus than a bass focus.
Yeah, it's quite a like loud kit in effect.
Mm-hmm.
While still being very trebly, not a lot of bass on it.
Yeah, so there's like that side of it, and then there's that kind of like gentle side, and then they get the like sort of airy vocals.
Yeah.
And then like there's a really fuzzy guitar sound too.
Yeah.
Which might actually just be a synthesizer. Oh no, there's a fuzzy guitar there too. The synthesizer is really more important. I don't know why I call it the guitar.
Just love guitar so much.
Yeah. So they follow the general structure, like more or less, but it sounds like them. I don't really know
different
what they
synths.
sound like, but it sounds different. They never do a full melody on the guitar, and kind of try to make it more of a gradual build up. The other thing they do, which to me is like, why wouldn't you do this? I'm surprised we haven't seen it before. The two registers are actually just two different people singing together.
Right, yeah, it makes sense.
Or alternating, which is like, wow. Yeah, to me, that's like the most obvious thing, which is maybe why other people didn't do it. But
that could be.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of like a different take on it. I don't know. There's not any like crazy specific things I can point out other than like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, there's like a bit of safeness in it. Like they're kind of hitting the same like general things. Like, so like the guitar chords are there to be the sixth slide, even if they're not that. The drums are different enough in my opinion, but the synths that come in are pretty close. They play the same shit. It's just like newer synths. It's like, wow, we have these new synths that are different. So there is a lot of safety in it, I think. But there is also enough that's different that I don't dislike it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a pretty decent sound to it. It's 2003 indie rock, so I'm sure in my mind that's positive thing.
That's cutting edge.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm only about 20 years behind, which is actually better than it used to be.
Hey, yeah, catching up.
Yeah.
Just getting into the hit 2003 album. Is this
probably something by the White Stripes?
Oh, something by the White Stripes would be good too. That would be a good bet. Is this it? Was 2001? So sure, yeah. Yeah, it's like there's a big extended instrumental section at the end. They have that like sizzle cymbal, but it sounds like it's like something else. But what they get at the end, around 3:44, is this new synth that kind of comes in and fades in as everything else fades out, and then takes us out.
Very ambient. I kind of didn't realize it wasn't there before.
Well, that's what you got me here for, Alex. Yeah, this one kind of, I guess I must have slipped through the cracks, man. It's like it's fine.
Yeah, something about it. I'm not latching on,
Yeah, there's nothing for me to grasp onto. Something also kind of difficult to grasp onto. Franz Ferdinand in 2007. Don't you wonder sometimes by sound and vision?
Yeah, the band Franz Ferdinand. We did Take Me Out not too long ago. Last year,
Scottish
I guess.
rock
It was last
band.
year, right?
That was last year in terms of this is coming out in 2023.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to make the timeline as confusing as possible.
Yeah, you've done a great job, Alex.
Anytime.
You always do. So this is the Scottish rock band Franz Ferdinand. You guys know Take Me Out, based on the hit film Enemy on the Gates. These guys, they were asked by BBC to play a song from 1977, and Alex Kapranos, who's the frontman for Franz Ferdinand, was like, this is my favorite song of the day.
Oh my gosh. This is why he was talking about it?
Yeah, that's right, Alex.
What? That's where the quote came from?
That's where the quote came from. It's pretty crazy, but it kind of lined up. I just, these beautiful little surprises happen when you research.
Wow.
Yeah. So what's interesting about this version, I think, as opposed to the previous versions, is that these guys actually do a more organic tilt on it. And that, like, the drums aren't processed on this, I don't think.
Certainly not in that, like, more processed sounding way.
Yeah, they're maybe processed in the way that professional recordings are processed.
Yeah.
But
it sounds
the sound
like drums.
on those drums it sounds very organic.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
guess
think that itself is quite a big move when we talk about how important the original's drums are to that.
It certainly sounds like Franz Ferdinand doing this song, as opposed to Franz Ferdinand got a bunch of synthesizers that they wouldn't normally use.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think it kind of sounds like the sort of thing they would play live, right?
Yeah.
Which, it feels like a cool live thing.
Yeah, it does feel very big. And maybe it's the inclusion of those female vocals doing the doo-doo-doos, but yeah, it does seem like something they do live. Yeah,
because their doo-doo-doos is like a whole gaggle. What's a group of backup singers
That's
called?
the correct term. It's a whole gaggle of women up here.
A whole group, like a group of people.
Yeah, a small collective.
Small collective of like singers.
Yeah, just a little gathering, as it were.
Yeah. Murder? Anyway. Yeah, and then of course they bring the lyrics in. Well, maybe not of course, but they like go lyrics from the start.
Yeah.
And then just repeat it. And then less instrument variety, I guess, in the sense that they play that sax part on a guitar.
Yeah.
So there's no saxophone.
Yes, you get it rock and roll-fied a bit on this version, in that it's like it leans
like
closer towards your standard band format. Of course, they do still have big gnarly synths on this.
Yes, there's a lot of like layering of sounds, so it does end up sounding very full.
Yes, and so like even his vocals are layered too, so you get a bit of that Bowie-styled vocals coming through.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a good singer. I think Kapranos is good at good vocals too.
Yeah, because he does like sings lower, he sings higher.
Yeah.
The ending's kind of funny.
Yeah, kind of dramatic.
Yeah, just like, over my head, and then like it fades out really quickly. So it's weird. I think a little unusual. Not like that unusual. It's a little more. I guess they're trying to make it definitive and not just sound like it's going to loop forever. But
yeah, it does kind of
takes a bit
pull
of
the rug out from you, though, doesn't it? Because you're grooving along, and then it's like, wait, is this supposed to be sad? You're like, I don't fucking know.
Maybe. Am I supposed to feel blue? Blue,
electric blue. There's something about that ending is reminiscent of another song. I can't put my finger on it at the moment. Yeah. Maybe even another Bowie song, but I can't nail it down.
I don't know it either.
The year of our Lord 2006. I don't know. Maybe the loneliest guy. No, still not that. I don't know. But yeah, it is an odd move at the end there, right?
Yeah, it feels odd.
But they do it. Hey. Beyond that, yeah, it's pretty crisp. They successfully mimic parts, like you said, like the guitar does the sax, and it's pretty well solid. Like.
Yeah, but compared to the last few who switched up quite a bit or did things in a different way or left parts out, this is not that. This is a recreation.
Yeah, recreation. And I do think the drums being like this almost arena, like live drum sound does add an interesting take to it. So I think it's still pretty neat. Perhaps even more neat is Molly Ledford in 2016.
Don't you wonder sometimes
about sound and vision. Blue, blue, electric blue, that's the...
Yes. Molly Ledford seems to be an actual children's library assistant. Am I looking up the right person?
I think you are correct. Songwriter, mom, children's library assistant. And if you dig slightly deeper, they write for little puppet shows too.
Oh, yeah. So, like, they do stuff for kids mostly.
Including this album called Let All the Children Boogie, which is, of course... So we talked before about children's music, and we talked about it with previous guest Ruby Swan, who mentioned that it's predominantly just like getting MIDI files and then swapping the actual instrument sound. So it's just like
now everything low budget, is a xylophone,
kind of soulless process. So this one, very interesting. It seems to be like entirely organic and like handmade, and like Molly Ledford actually was like, I'm going to make this song, but I guess for children, in that it has like xylophones and shit.
Yeah, it's like xylophones and like flutes, so everything is like soft.
Mm-hmm.
And she sings softly. It basically like it's an acoustic version essentially.
Yeah.
But there's like a few other like changes. You know, it's not just an acoustic guitar strumming. In fact, I don't think there's an acoustic guitar in this at all. Like it's all on the
it's all on
the xylophone, and then like there's a flute that does the like string part.
Yeah.
And things like that.
And then there's whistling for the main melody.
Yes, I'm always fascinated by whistling in songs because it's hard to do consistently.
Yeah, you're telling me, man. I'm still trying to get a consistent whistle out.
Yeah. Oh, here's a note. Molly Ledford wants a cookie as big as her head.
Hey, good for her. Me too.
That's important and relevant to this song.
That is.
Yeah, so it basically, the bones of the song are on that xylophone, and then there's other stuff around it. It really made me think of like Little Big Planet, like Medium Molecule kind of thing, because it does feel very... Is twee the right word?
Twee, I think, could be used correctly here.
Use twee again, but in like small.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way.
No, but in that sort of like positive view of childhood, that things are simple and clean and quite nice.
Yeah, strange. I mean, I guess for very young children, maybe ripping guitars are not the best thing. But keeping it very like calm sounding and laid back is like, yeah, you'd probably play this for a young child.
Oh yeah,
and they would feel like, I don't understand all the words being said, but I do know what the color blue is.
Exactly, right? That's enough of a hook for a child.
Yeah, absolutely. And the flute sounds nice, and xylophones are fun because you just have to hit them.
Yeah.
With a stick, and that's like the most fun thing.
Oh yeah, especially when you get two of those sticks in one hand. Oh, buddy, now you're playing xylophone. But yeah, so I guess accurately summed up as a twee version of Sound and Vision. Which, as mentioned, there is some twee elements in the original.
So tweeness.
To jack that up and make something tailor-made for kids that doesn't sound like you just fucking switch some audio files around, pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, so way to go.
On this next cover artist, bit of an indie guy, David Bowie in 2022.
Blue, blue, electric blue, that's the color for the living room where I will live. Blue, blue. Pay your blinds, run.
Yeah, this one was a bit of a cheat, because we kind of already talked about Moon Age Daydream, or did we? I don't know.
Who knows? The release order is. The Moon Age Daydream biopic's going to be last, Alex.
Okay, well...
Documentary movie.
Here's a little teaser for that, then. We've
never seen it, though.
This movie we've never seen before.
You're not going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it a bit. So I guess... I mean, this is from the Moon Age Daydream or a Brett Morgan film soundtrack.
Yes.
And it's basically just like an alternate take. For the most part, as far as I can tell.
With either some of
words.
those, like some of those cut lyrics now in, or just straight up different versions of the lyrics.
Yeah. They definitely have like the they have access to more, I don't know, stems or master tapes or whatever you call them. They've got more recording stuff that didn't end up in the final version. And for that reason, it is cool.
Yes, it's very cool. So it opens up with a really stripped down, you just get that fucking bass line. And you get to hear exactly how much it grooves. You get to hear like even the dirty, like just the sound of finger on string. Like,
yeah, I really like that part. You feel a little more of the bass, the way they've mixed it here, because it really feels like bassier, and you really get that closeness.
Mm-hmm.
And you can hear more piano here, or there's a new piano part that was maybe not included, which is very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool, and we get the break-in of these new David Bowie lines. Blue, blue, electric blue, that's the color for the living room.
Yeah.
He says pale blinds. Why does he say it? Why did I just write pale blinds?
I don't know, man. Nothing to read, nothing to say, which he already says, but it's more obvious in this. He says it a little differently. I will dream of other lands, waiting for the gift of sound and vision. He says at one point.
I will dream of other lands. Did you say I will see a million miles?
I didn't write that down, but it happens.
He does say that. Yeah, that piano much more prominent and sort of in that like soul Young Americans vibe again.
Yeah, I guess so. It's easy to forget, but these were very
he
close
repeats
together.
pale blinds instead of saying blue, blue.
Oh yeah, pale blind. Yeah. Okay.
I told myself, I was like, I'll write that down. I'll remember what that means.
I don't know what that means. Of course not. The other thing that happens, which, I mean, I have to assume is a construct for the movie, at 1:55, the harmonica from A New Career in a New Town comes in.
That's right.
For a bit, and then it comes in more, I think, later.
More at the end.
And then after that, it's kind of just like the bass and the piano like jamming out for a while, and it's just like really cool because I like all these sounds.
Yeah, it's funny because like it achieves the same effect as the original mix or as the single mix, while being like fully different, like fully emphasizing this piano.
Yeah, the piano part's like cool. I see why you wouldn't want to put it in.
Mm-hmm.
Just for what he was trying to make in low versus what he had made previously, but like it sounds really cool. And I don't think it's just like they took the piano from something else or anything like that. So I can't identify it from anything else.
No.
Not that I know Young Americans that well.
No, this plays too well.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that harmonica plays in really well too.
Yeah. So, I mean, without going into too much detail, because obviously we don't know anything about this movie at all.
No, never seen it, never heard of it until right now.
Yeah, just this moment. But yeah, very cool. Then it fades into A New Career in a New Town.
That's right.
In the end, which is another song that is on sound or is on low and is really cool song.
And it is the B-side to Sound and Vision, at least on its initial release.
Oh, right.
But yeah, what a tight piece.
So this one, I mean, it's really just an alternate take on the original version for people like us who are really into this kind of thing. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool to see, and it's still a bop. It's not just like a demo where you're like, okay, I can see
some of
how
those,
it became a good song eventually.
Like, I mean, Moon Age Daydream, the original.
Yeah, the Arnold
Corns version. That one was a little rougher.
Yeah, for sure. But it's time for us to get a little rough with our final verdicts here. So that's all the covers for today. We got 3 categories today. The worst version, the best version, and the version that you would have playing in your solitary confinement on loop, on repeat.
Oh, man. Okay.
Alex, what's the worst version?
The worst version. It's probably Motor Industries and Kristin Berg.
'Cause you're Motor Industries. Yeah? Why is that, Alex?
Well, I mentioned before it feels kind of sterile. It feels like there's something missing.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it might be a groove, but it might be another instrument or something like that. I think they could have had some success with the slowing it down and really sinking into that groove, but they didn't hit the groove well enough for that to work. So
Right.
it fails for that. And also, like, the lyrics aren't very good either.
Ooh, got him. Suck it, Kristin Berg. No, I agree. I think it is the one that comes off. I mean,
Lyrics, the vocals.
could give it to the C and Cake because I've still forgotten them. Even like
They have a claim for it. I did kind of forget about it.
they're very forgettable. Where at least like Motor Industries gave you hope to be disappointed by. Yeah, I might check it to the C and Cake because like even thinking now to try to defend it, I'm like,
But what did it sound like?
What did it fucking sound like? Was it jazz influenced? Not from my memory. So I'm gonna give it to the C and Cake. Alex, what's the best version of this?
Best version of this. Oh my gosh.
This is a tough one.
I'm not giving it to Moon Age Daydream. That doesn't count.
No, that's cheating.
That's cheating. In terms of who was actually like the best version that I would want to listen to, I'm like, it's probably Quasi.
Quasi, yeah.
Probably Quasi, because I'm trying to think of the other one. I thought Book of Love did a decent enough job.
Yeah, I think right out the gate there, 93, like, pretty solid.
Yeah. But I don't know.
I think in terms of consistency of vibe, if I'm to use the word vibe, like Quasi hits their thing right off the bat, expands it, while not being like too crazy, and then, you know, I think it's perhaps the most solidly built. You know, it's the Honda Civic of covers. They ain't flashy, but it gets you where you're going. And
like, I believed it. I believed it all. You know, it was a slower take that actually worked, so that's impressive enough. I was thinking of Molly Ledford, but I ultimately couldn't give it to it because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's really just not for me, which is fine.
Yeah, it's true.
But I'm also
you are not a child anymore.
I'm not going to give it best, but it was definitely very successful. But yeah, I think it's got to be Quasi.
Quasi, that's fair. Yeah, I also thought of Molly Ledford, and I do wonder, because sometimes we just get something that is new to our ears in that sense, this being children's cover music that's actually performed as if it was original, like given that layer of care.
Right.
And sometimes we go like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then we find more shit. Like we might even dig into this album and it's just like, oh, it's all the same still.
It's all that. Yeah.
So to avoid that disappointment while still acknowledging that I think the Molly Ledford one was pretty tight, yeah, I might also have to go Quasi.
Yeah.
Motor Industries is bad. Book of Love, just like a little off in tone.
A little short
towards
of
the
the
end,
line.
particularly. Yeah, it's just like...
Yeah.
But I do like a bit of the chopping up on that. And I did describe one of the synths as almost being Donkey Kong Country, which is high praise.
It is high praise, and like kind of the right time period too.
For sure, yeah. Is that DKC3 at that time?
93?
Probably just coming out.
93? I think
93?
DKC3 was a little later because I was
a little later. I've got my timelines mixed up. Because the N64 needs to come out before DKC3 can come out.
Yeah. The original was 94.
94. Okay. Yes, maybe they inspired David Wise. Probably not. I'm giving it to Quasi. I'm gonna stop.
just gonna give it to Quasi.
Fucking give it to Quasi. Alex.
Yeah.
In solitary confinement. They've allowed you one. What would you call it? Curse. one monkey's paw wish, and that's to have one version of Sound and Vision playing constantly
repeat.
on
mean,
repeat.
it can't be the original, I think. Even though that would be 100% my choice if it could be.
Yeah, I would truly find bliss.
But which of these would be the best to loop? I feel like it's got to be Molly Ledford, only because then I'd be able to sleep at night. Although maybe I could sleep to the C and Cake one. Zing! It wasn't that bad.
Got him. I just forgot it. Like, it could have been that bad. I don't know.
But it's got to be Molly Ledford.
Yeah, I think Molly Ledford plays well on padded walls, probably.
Yeah, that said, I feel like it could be I feel like that xylophone could get grating after a while.
Pretty quick.
But,
I agree.
Initially, I feel like I'd give it a chance.
Yeah, my hope is that I get out of solitary sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm not there forever, am I?
That's up to you, brother. That's up to you.
Oh, man.
There you have it, though. That is our final verdict. You got a different opinion, similar opinion, want to talk to us about a version we didn't talk about, hit us up on Twitter. Still there. Hashtag CoverMePod, @ShakeTheCressy, @some Alex Wise Guy. Send us your comments, questions, concerns, suggestions for future episodes. We'll take them into consideration. Be sure to rate and review us. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, your favorite podcasting app. Let's get us above 4 stars on Spotify in 2023. Let's do it, folks. Come on. We're not that far off.
Yeah.
And then send us your genuine criticisms.
That can be a goal. We'll hit 4 and that in February, and then we won't have to do anything else for the rest of the year.
For the rest of the year, we can shut the podcast down. 4 to 5, baby. That's 80%. Come on. But also be sure to send us mean and snarky reviews. You can honestly give us bad reviews everywhere else. Just Spotify only has a star system. But if you want to just review us and tear into us, that's still interaction, and the podcasting services, they love it, baby. They love that shit. Tell your friends and family about us. Tell them to review us too. You're our marketing budget. You're the marketing team. You're the head of marketing. And you can put that on your resume. But I will not give you my contact information. Be on Twitter and covermepod@gmail.com. That does it for today's episode of Cover Me. And as we always say on Cover Me, don't you wonder sometimes about Cover Me?